Hey everyone, in this tutorial let's take a look at how we can bind data to the template. The easiest or the basic way of binding data is to use the Mustache tag. Now let's just define a variable and assign it 1. We can simply use this in the template like this. Save, and it displays the value in the page. Let's modify our code to update the counter every second. I'm gonna use the mounted hook. I'm gonna use set interval. I'm gonna call this function every second, and I'm gonna increment counter. Now whenever we want to access the variables defined in the data, we need to access them using the this. So this dot counter plus plus. So this will increment the counter by 1 every second. Save. Let's head out to the browser and we can see the template is getting updated every second. Now if we just want to display the counter, just display the counter once and stop it being getting updated. After that we can do this. We can define a div, so div element, and then we use the directive v1s. By using v1s, the counter is rendered only once. Now if we save, let's just console log the counter here. Now we can see that in the logs the counter is getting updated, but on the DOM it's just stuck at 1. If we remove these v1s, we can again see the counter getting incremented. Now the other way of binding data is when we want to bind to an attribute. Let's say we have an ID and we want to bind to ID. Let's create another variable, counter ID, and give it a value. To bind counter ID to this ID, we can't use the Mustache tags. This is wrong. This won't work. We need to use the directive vbind and then use our variable. Save. Let's inspect this. Now we can see that the ID is bound to that counter ID and the value of the counter ID is rendered here. Now what if we want to display some HTML? Let's define a variable and give it some HTML. Let's try to render this HTML. I'm gonna format this template like that. And then let's try to render this HTML here. What would happen? Well, it just rendered the plain text format of the HTML. It didn't render the HTML. Now the way we can display HTML is to use another directive. Can't use the mustache tags. We need to use the vhtml, and let's use our variable. Pass the variable to this directive. Now we can see that the HTML is rendered on the browser page properly. Well, this is it for this video. Thank you.